Are you looking to up your game in 2024 when it comes to your plant care? Have you prepared yourself? Have you set yourself some goals as to what you want to improve, what maybe you don't want to be trying again? Stick with me and let's set some goals down in order to maximize the growth during the growing season. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So slightly different video today. I thought, seeing as we're coming into the change of the year, but again, hopefully this video will apply at any time that you might watch this, I thought let's do something like goal setting for the year. Preparation is key in order to maximize your potential growth in the growing season. And a lot of the times, what a lot of us will do is leave everything to the last minute and just go, I could have done that a bit better. Coming to the end of the growth season going, I could have had a lot more growth, or I could have done this better. And I should have planned that a bit better, basically. This is what this video is about, basically. Let's plan ahead, so that at least if we know what we're going to be wanting to achieve this coming growth season, then we will be better prepared for it. And I'll talk to you about some of my kind of goals for the next year, some of them positive, some of them negative, but not so much necessarily. So I want to talk about kind of pinning down my propagation game, making sure that I am downsizing when I need to downsize. Getting back into something like pollinating my anthuriums, reshuffling my collection so it works better not just for me but for the plants themselves, and finding a way to give back to the community as a whole in a more ethical manner. These are some of my goals that I'm going to dive in with you through this video, but your goals might look entirely different. It depends on what you're hoping to achieve for this year. But hopefully what this video will become is a springboard for all of us to have that conversation in the comments down below, so we can all get ideas of oh, I was planning on doing this, but you're doing this. I quite like what you're planning on doing. Maybe I should be doing that as well. So it gives us plenty of time to get ready, set the goals, and prepare for explosive growth potentially, or a much better experience during that big boom of growth coming into the spring and summer. Because don't forget, it might be winter now, but that growth season is just around the corner. Might not seem like it, but it is, I promise. Okay, so coming into my first goal, which is mastering propagation. And just so that you know that I'm not ducking rubbish, let me deal with it. Oops. This is one of my propagation bins. And it's looking a bit sparse at the moment, which is surprising, but let me give you the reality of my propagation bins. I have got 1, 2, 3 propagation bins. 3 propagation bins, each with their own grow lights above them or around them, basically. Now, the reality is, the propagation bin that I just showed you, put it back now, that one is I've cut something, I'm throwing it in there. So instead of throwing it away, part of the goal for this year is throw away cuttings that you really do not need to be propagating. I have talked about this recently on another video, where all of a sudden you end up with a gajillion different cuttings of pothos, and you're just like, I don't need this many, and I have given pothos away to all my friends and family. They don't want any more. Why am I still propagating it? So that's part of this goal, is propagate less of what I don't want to have. Assume success, assume that everything I'm going to propagate is going to root out, and then I'm going to have to deal with a new plant of whatever I'm rooting out. And then if it doesn't, that's fine, but assume success, because a lot of the times most of us don't go through that process and going, oh, it probably won't survive, so I'm just going to put it in there, and then 3 months down the line I'm just like, what am I going to do with 50 propagations of a pothos? I'm using the poor pothos as an example again, but it could be anything. And the issue I'm having with my propagation bin is the one that you were just looking at now. That's I've cut something, pop that in there. No, this year I will not be doing that. So the goal is to be a bit more conscious about what's going in there and plan ahead. The other propagation bin is my seedlings from an Anthurium hybridization that I did through pollination, which I'll come to in just a moment. 2 years ago now, they're still the same size. Should I move them out? Yes. Have I given away to even some of the viewers or people that I talk to on Instagram quite regularly? Yes. But that doesn't need to be there, basically, because essentially what I'm doing is wasting a whole bunch of energy, because all that's happening at the moment, I'm cracking them open every so often, checking if they need water, filling the water up, putting them back to where they are, and the lights just burn through electric, basically. I know it's not huge because most of them are LED grow lights, but still, they don't need to be there. And then there's another propagation bin, which has been going with the same propagations for nearly 4 years. That is the fact that I put in one Begonia bravuramosa subspecies exotica, and I'm quite glad I've got it now because I'm going to need it. Let me show you what my current plant looks like. It looks so sad and so crispy, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's either gone dry for too long, or it's stayed wet for too long. It's in semi-hydro, so it depends. The roots are looking okay. It's just the foliage is not looking its bestest, basically. And this is a plant that I've rehabbed a few times now, but that entire propagation bin that I am talking about is all cuttings of this, healthy cuttings, very heavily rooted cuttings, where the entire box now is covered in that kind of pinky purpley color that this plant is, because there is so much growth in that propagation bin, which is good and bad at the same time, because it means I'm kind of avoiding dealing with that, so it means I never bring it out, so that bin is just a bin of things that I care about-ish, but not enough that I ever want to take it out and deal with it and deal with other propagations. So that needs to be sorted. The other part of this goal is the fact that I want to start attempting propagating in different media again. In like a good few years back now, I wasn't just propagating in sphagnum moss, I was propagating in things like pon or leca or perlite, or even directly into soil or water propagations. I got lazy, and I think a lot of us get lazy with when you get a propagation bin of just dealing the same thing that you've always ever done in that propagation bin, putting things in, and if it doesn't work, it's just like, oh, it didn't work, I can't propagate that. It might be that we were propagating it in the wrong media. So what might end up happening is those 3 propagation bins, which will be getting emptied during the festive season. I'm filming this in advance because I'm going to be doing a lot of pottering around over the festive period. Audiobooks and peace and quiet for Memo. Those are all going to get cleared out, and potentially they're going to remain as propagation boxes, but in preparation. So one of them might get a few cuttings that I know that I want to do, because again, this is part of the goal, is plan ahead with what I want to propagate. But one might be the sphagnum moss propagation bin. The other one might be leca. The other one might be something like the perlite propagation. So at least I've got different options of things that I could try. And it would all fall under the category of mastering propagation as much as I can in this year. My second goal is, and this might make people a bit nervous, I'm sure it's making me a bit nervous when I think about it, but downsize. And before you all worry, the majority, you probably won't notice anything when I'm filming. I don't think an awful lot will change drastically, but I need to put my money where my mouth is, and I've talked about this enough about not keeping plants that are not bringing you joy anymore. They're taking up valuable space, resources by you having to care for them. Things are going to have to get reduced in here. Things that I'm not enjoying anymore, things that have only ever caused me issue, things need to go, basically. And I'll just keep the things that I'm really enjoying. As I said, you probably won't notice too much of a difference because, again, I know I'm talking from a place of privilege. I've got too many plants, basically. So like even reducing the ones that I already know that I want to reduce and downsize probably won't make a visual difference to you. It will just make a mental difference to me of not having to deal with all of these things at the same time. So it might be an option. I'll give you an example. Do I need, and this links to the first goal of overpropagating, do I need 7 plants of Pothos Enjoy? No. And it might not mean that I'm going to get rid of 6 or potentially give them to friends. It might just mean that I'm going to repot all of them into one massive pot, basically. And then I've got one plant. See? plant person math. But at the same time, I also know there's certain plants that I'm not going to be keeping in my collection in any way or form. Some plants that I know that I can gift to friends, and I've already reached out to them and they're interested and they're waiting for them big time to come into their care. And certain other plants that none of the friends are kind of interested in, and they're relatively common plants you can get in other places, which are probably going to get composted, basically. I'm okay to say this. So doing something like that is quite cathartic. I know there's this kind of like new year, new me situation, but this really does feel a bit like I can start the year afresh, basically, and kind of look at what I've got, what I don't want, and kind of take it from there. This will also help when I'm getting new plants in, basically, of having the space to put them in there. And I have heard some of the comments of people that don't necessarily appreciate with a lot of people. They're just like, I've just got a new plant and I don't know what to do with it or care with it, and I'm getting rid of all these plants, and it becomes very consumeristic. Most of my plants, hopefully by this point, don't suffer with that issue. Most of my plants I've had for years at this point, but it's kind of a point where they kind of need to move on, so I can go with something new and attempt something new as well. Planty new, just before anybody worries. Next big goal for the year is going back into trialing Anthurium pollination. Yay! I don't have any, talking about pollination. This here is the bloom that's about to ready to open of my Philodendron Esmeraldens. Not an Anthurium, but so excited to see that open. I know it's not going to be spectacular, but so excited. But the difference is I tried, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I tried doing pollination relatively successfully. Part of the reason why I want to do the pollination is because I want to attempt hybridization a bit more in terms of Anthurium species. Because when I was doing the pollination last time, I literally think the only plants that I had were my Philodendron magnificum / metallicum / hybrid, which we've been discussing for years on this channel. So that was one. Then I had the Vitarifolium that's behind me here. And then I had my crystallinum. That was it. Didn't have any others. So my cross-pollination kind of attempts were very, very specific, basically. So I also didn't know anything about sections of Anthuriums, and I did another video about sections of Anthurium, and I'll link it somewhere at the top. And during that video, I kind of discovered a bit more, having done a bit more deep research now, that there are certain sections, kind of think of them as groupings of Anthuriums, that would hybridize well with each other, some that are a bit hit and miss, and some that will never produce a viable seed. So knowing that now and having a lot more Anthurium, so I've got the Anthurium Esmeraldens now, I've got the Anthurium pedatum, I've got the Zara X Michelle, which is already a hybrid, I've got the Erisimoides, I've got the Anthurium eminence, the Clavigerum, I've got the Kitakuense. Not that that's bloomed, it's still alive for the people that are worried, it is still alive, but yeah, it is one of the things that I want to try. And further to that, I also want to keep track of my process, because last time I kind of did a video as a bit of an afterthought, because I know that people wanted to see a video of kind of what my experiences were. But this time around, I might actually film different segments of the different parts of the process. Now, my question for you, if you've got this far in the video, is how would you like to see those videos? Do you want a different video for each one of the sections so you can really truly understand what each part is like? So kind of the point of seeing the inflorescence, being able to decide what part, is it male stage now, is it female stage? The actual pollination, what do I do with the pollen? How do I store it? Then kind of after that is doing a video of seeing some of the berries starting to swell up. There could be another video about kind of harvesting the berries, and there could be another video about what do you do after you harvest the berries and planting them out, and then another video potentially as an update. Or do you want me to just film each one of those sections and just do a massive video at the end showing all of the videos in one stint? That might be shorter, because otherwise we're going to be there for a good few hours. So let me know and I will plan ahead for that. But I think it would be quite an interesting thing to try this year. And what I'm hoping to do, not do the same issue that I had with the propagation bin with thousands of like seedlings, is make sure that I keep, this is going to sound horrendous to a lot of people, but do what a lot of the commercial growers do and just go, this seedling is the best one out of these 5, these 4 get discarded. So at that point, we'll see basically if some people in the UK that watch my channel want some of the ones that I'm going to discard, more than happy to send them to you basically. It will avoid having multiple bins with propagations from hybrids where I won't do the same mistake I did last time where I didn't label them. So I'm just kind of looking at them going, I think that's what this is. So I will hopefully demark the hybrids correctly so I know what I'm looking at basically. My 4th goal is going to be a bit of a reshuffle of my space, and I do encourage you to take a step back. This is a time of the year, especially if you're watching this now in the winter when this is first coming out, where we don't get an awful lot of growth, at least not here in the northern hemisphere basically. So this is a time to take a step back and just kind of go, okay, I've gone through the growth season last year. What needs to change? What needs to move where, basically? So, for instance, I know that even if I wanted to move my philodendron and zomorrhodents, I can't. It's too ingrained into that specific plant shelf. What I do know, however, and let me show you, is, for instance, this little seedling of an Anthurium magnificum, and that's the oldest leaf just dying off at that point, by the way, just to clarify. I know that this could do with a bit more light. So now, especially if you're doing this during the holiday season where it's a lot of downtime for a lot of people basically, and you can potter the same way that I'm going to be pottering, it's going to be great. But even if it's on the weekends and you're watching this at a different time of the year, what you can do is start thinking about reshuffling your collection. It might be that you put things there temporarily and then it's still there months later and it's a pain in the bum to water, to care. It might be too close to each other so you're getting pests going around. Deal with that. Or it might be that this isn't getting enough light. Move it to somewhere else that's getting more light. So it's A, reshuffling things around to make your life easier, but also at the same time, B, reshuffling things around to give the specific plant a better chance of success and thus maximizing the growth in the next growth season. Because what will then happen is you kind of already seen it and it's just like, oh, it didn't do that well. Do I maybe just move it? Can I move it somewhere else that's got slightly better humidity or slightly warmer or slightly colder depending on the altitude? And again, I did a video on altitude. Some plants prefer a slightly colder area. So moving things like that around will help, not just for your own peace of mind and sanity as being able to care for them in the best way that you can, but also giving them the best chance of success. Because if something isn't working, change it. It's very simple. And my final goal of the year, and this is not something that a lot of people talk about, and again, this is not me throwing shade on anybody basically, but we're always talking about the fact that we want to kind of help the wider community and what do we do to be more ethical in the hobby and all of these things. So I thought again, and quite literally put my money where my mouth is at this point and actually look at donating to certain charities that are linked within our little bubble of the world, basically. So it could be things like conservation efforts in the natural habitats for a lot of these plants. It could be charities that deal with the local community there that might be people that are involved in plants or helping them get more jobs or more training with dealing with these plants. Hopefully that helps alleviate some of the pressures of poaching from nature as well. And then it could also be conservations for specific species as well. Sometimes you can get that specific. Couple of things to remember. And by the way, there's a reason why I gave you these kind of 3 categories. I will be dealing with hopefully 3 different charities. One which will deal with the community at large and hopefully give some further training. One that will deal with the habitat and one which might deal with specific genuses or species and all of these things. I'd rather do that, and then at least I know that the money that I am spending is helping as wide as possible. You don't have to, basically, and you can find other ways of contributing back. It doesn't have to be financial, basically. If you are going to go down the charity route and you do want to give a bit more back to that community and help and make it a bit more ethical and a bit more sustainable, do your research. I know this sounds horrible, but do your research. There are websites online where, and I don't know how aware of this people are, that sometimes certain charities that you're doing the right thing for yourself, for your own conscience, and basically going, I am donating all of this money to this charity because they are supporting this element or this aspect that I'm interested in, and you don't realize this. This is probably a very extreme example, but like 70% of all the donations that everybody's giving is basically just going to pay off the people that work within that charity. I know they need to get paid, but ultimately it kind of makes you feel a bit raw. So there are certain websites where you can kind of see, I think they'll give you a breakdown. I can't remember what they're called. If I can find it during editing, I'll see if I can put some examples up there where it basically tells you, okay, this is roughly the amount that's spent directly into what you're donating, and this is what's kind of more operational costs, just for your own peace of mind, basically. And again, making sure that they are kind of following through, keeping an eye on where you're helping with your donations to see that actually, you know what, they are doing some good things in the community, and you can feel a bit better that at least you are doing what we've always said that we want to do, which is helping to minimize things like deforestation, maintaining habitats where these plants are growing, training the local people there that are dealing with plants, and hopefully helping to reduce some of that kind of poaching that might be happening for nature. Because the theory behind that is if you train the people that might be poaching currently on more sustainable ways of dealing with this industry and dealing with the plants so they don't have to poach, that is at least a step in the right direction, basically. And I do appreciate that this is a white person talking about these things, but this is the best that I can think of in terms of helping. If you are located in some of these areas of the world and you think that there might be better options, please do let us know. I'm constantly doing research on this to keep as up to date as I can and hopefully be making the right moves, but I'm more than happy to be told that I am wrong. But that is my goals coming into the next year, to hopefully get more growth, more explosive growth, more structured growth in my care, and making sure that, like what we were talking about before, if I'm reshuffling things, it means they're going to get a better location, which means better growth. If I'm being much more conscientious about my propagations, I'm more likely to then move propagations out or move things into propagations that I want to deal with, thus growing the collection in that way, basically. Things like downsizing a bit in terms of the collection, it means that things that aren't really that for me anymore can move and other things can come into my care, and hopefully that could become something like the plant behind me, which I'm going to have for many years on end and love it truly and dearly, basically. So things like that. And then obviously giving back to the community as well in whatever way we can all do it. It doesn't have to be financial. As I said, it could just be as simple as you going and helping out. If you can do an outreach or anything that you can do, it doesn't always have to be financial. And then things like pollinations, I'm going to get more Anthurium hybrids and see how things work, and I can get my geeky brain going, basically. But what did you think about my goals for the next year? What are yours? As I said, if we all put our goals for the next year down below, it could be one goal, it could be 5 goals, it could be 10 goals, however many you want to put down there. We can all see and discuss and maybe get ideas and go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And it's something that I experienced last year and I really should have that as a goal. Now would be the time for us to plan ahead, basically. But yeah, hopefully you've all enjoyed. Hopefully if you're seeing this when this is coming out, and I'm hoping this is going to come out during that weird period in the deep in the holiday season, basically when there's a whole bunch of nothing's happening, basically. Hopefully you're enjoying the downtime if you're watching this. And yeah, hopefully I shall see you all here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.